All right, some just more stories about, like I've said over and over again, the like saving stuff and everything like that. I in a recent video mentioned about having to replace these is a bit of a nuisance, like the glue and peeling it off, and it does take time. Another thing, like you actually have to take the table off, which isn't a huge deal. It's just a couple, you know, screws here kind of thing on each side, but you have to take that off, and it's really about the cleaning the surface to put the new one on. I did mention that, like I said, it's not that these are necessarily overly expensive. I do want to say, however, I think the last time I bought one of these, it varied a little bit depending on your grit, but I want to say it was like 350 to $5, something like that. Um, so hence why I do say, like cleaning them makes a difference. They're not terribly expensive, but I mean, if you're replacing, depending on obviously how much use you have, if you replace one a month, if you're at that kind of closer to the $5 range, well, $5 a month, or you clean them off, and maybe you can push it to 2 months or something like that. Or, but the other thing too is just depending on availability of stuff. And like I said, because I used to work in a tool store and work in a tool store kind of sort of, and certain things come in and there's damage and warranty, and things like that, and things that come back as warranty but they're not warranty because it's misuse, or things get damaged in shipping but never caught, etc., etc. Just retail stores having waste. And like I said, I was fortunate to see this waste. And like I said, some of the stuff was they throw it away. It's a loss for the company. They can't sell it for really anything, and it's just a loss. I can take it and use it for things. That's not me taking advantage of a company. It's I've talked to the managers and stuff, and they said no, it's garbage, and you can have all the free garbage you want. And I was told, and free garbage is always good. um, so I have here, trying to get the whole thing here. Uh, Funny enough, would have been a big enough belt for my general out in the garage that I have in a different video. This would have been a 6x48, but it had a big tear in it. I mean, I don't. It wasn't necessarily right there, but there was a tear in it, and I believe that tear became from shipping from one location to another. And I highly suspect what it was. It happened to be near the top of a repack box, and the box got cut open, and someone had a blade a little too deep, and they cut into it. And well, that's you can't sell it. It's got a cut. It's a loss. So something that gets thrown away. It gets commonly thrown away. I'm sure I'm not the first person to see this getting thrown away. So you can see here I have a Sharpie circle there. So that is the size for that. So I can cut these out with scissors or a razor blade or whatever. And then I have a spray adhesive, which I use for applying my felt backers to my woodworking projects. So already something I have and already buy, and I can spray it to this, and then I can apply it to there. And once again, I know I sound like a broken record, and I know I've said that even again. So, but this was literally a sheet that was going to get tossed out just because maybe negligence or whatever you want to call it. Um, and like I said, it wasn't warranty, because you look here, you could see that's the actual seam. there's a problem with the product, especially with these kind of things, that's where it's going to fail. And it wasn't. It was something that was a clear cut. Um, so, like I said, unfortunately, it was something that it was just a company loss. And it would been something they would have thrown out. If you look here, so that'd be 100 grit. I think right now, what came with the sander, I think was 80. So this is a bit finer grit, but that's still okay. Like I said, like this one, I'll still get some more use out of it, even though it's starting to get some stuff that's gummed up. I've mentioned about like the cleaning with the corks. I actually forgot to mention in the previous video about that. Depending on the size of the cleaning discs you get, if I remember correctly, there's one that's about a inch and a half by inch and a half by about 8. And then I think they also sold ones that are about 2.5 by 2.5 by about 10. I think. Uh, this is me going off memory, but the cheaper of them, I think, were still about $10 each. Like I said, that's just in my area. I don't know where everyone is, so I'm sure prices vary. I'm in Canada, so it's also Canadian dollars. But back to what I was saying is these are free. And as I mentioned, I have a bag of them. And all those came from either, wine bottles or whiskey bottles or something like that. But I've told all my, friends and family, like, hey, like if you ever come across one of them, just save them for me, kind of thing. And so let's say I normally, for one this size, like I've used this one probably 3-4 times already to do both a disc and a belt, and I could probably still get another one, maybe 2 out of that one. So you look at that, you get maybe, let's even just say like 3 or 4 out of that. So you save 4 of those for one of these, and like I said, these are maybe $3.50 to $5. One of these saves you the same cost as buying one of those big erasers. Sure, one of those big erasers lasts, exponentially longer than these, but there's no extra cost associated with using these. So I know I rant about some of this kind of stuff, but it's just me trying to pass on some hints and tricks, and obviously some of these things aren't necessarily tricks that help everyone. Like I was saying, like the getting these isn't necessarily something that everyone can get. But if someone does say have, both those tools, if you have the 6x48 sander and one of these benchtop sanders, and you happen to have one of these break that's before it's dull, you can cut it and you could still save it, kind of thing, which I understand isn't a common thing for most people. But as I always mention, I like saving stuff. So for me, this is another way I can save just random things, because I'm luckily enough able to come across them. And then it also helps me keep my costs down on my products, which then I can, pass along to the consumer, kind of thing. I also want to point out, like, even other things I have, even back to my scroll saw. I've mentioned there's a ton of different blades and all that kind of thing. And so this here, if you look at this, is quite a bit thicker than some of the other ones. Like that's about twice the thickness of that one at the tip. And then obviously the one in the saw actually narrows down, so this is probably about 3 times the thickness down there. I use these for cutting thicker wood, for when, like, let's say if my bandsaw is down, as it is right now. And then ironically, these used to be bandsaw blades. So a bandsaw, depending on the size, they vary hugely in lengths. But I got these from something that was back to a warranty item that couldn't be returned couldn't be claimed as warranty because blades are consumable items. That's not really a warrantable item. If you use it, it dulls and it's not warranty unless it's an actual manufacturer defect. If it snaps at the weld or something like that. Anyways, that came from a bandsaw blade, and it was something that wasn't warrantable, and it was going to get tossed. I may have mentioned before that I scrap metal, so I took it for scrap metal. At least that way, it wasn't going into the garbage bin. It would go into my bin that became scrap metal. Then I realized, well, all I got to do is get a pair of tin snips and cut it to length, and then I can use that to rough cut